Good afternoon, and welcome to today's episode of Happiness After Codependency. I'm Marshall Berkshire, and I'm your guide in helping you come to know, love, and be who you are, which sets you free from needing to be codependent to get your essential needs met, to have happiness in your world, to feel safe, to feel connected, to have purpose and direction. Break free codependency so you can discover those things free for you, and how they work for you, rather. So, excited to have you here today, guys. Real quick here. Today we're going to be talking about, we have episode number 4, which is Reinforcing Your Healing. Episode 4 of the Reinforcing Your Healing series, rather. And today we're going to be talking about the 5 habits that make successful long-term healing real. Okay, so these are patterns of behavior I've noticed in my students and clients over the years of doing this, as well as in myself and other people healing, and where they do these things, and that's what helps create this resilient, persistent state of healing in their world, or healed state, a place where they are moved on and grown beyond their past experience. So excited to share that with you today. Before we do that, I'm going to get this shared out to the community real quick. There it is. Let me know how you guys are doing in the comments below. And also, if you're looking for a community that can guide and support you and give you tools and inspiration in your own healing and coming to know, love, and be who you are, come join us in the community. The link is above on Facebook, below on YouTube in the description. Check the rules first to make sure it's an appropriate fit for you. Then apply to join. We add new members on Wednesdays and Sundays. So do that there. Got that shout out. So I'm excited to have you guys here. Hi, Deborah. Nice to see you down there in the chat box. So yeah, we're going to have some adventure with these 5 principles here. All right. Also, stick to the end for an announcement on a new workshop coming up at the end of the month. Now, okay. So a lot of times in healing work, we feel like we're not making any progress. Let me know in the comments if you relate to this, because in my own work, I was doing the processes, I was doing the practices, I was doing this, I was taking on this, I was reading that book and watching these YouTubes and taking this course and doing that thing over there, and I was kind of bouncing around a lot. And in therapy, it was really about talking about what happened, not really accessing what I felt about it in a way that made sense or worked for me. It actually aggravated me a fair bit. I felt like I'd I'd experience some relief, and then we'd be back to the same thing over and over. I just kept doing this ping pong on things. And so I'd run out to other resources and try to get other things, try to figure that out, and use those things for a little bit, and then ping pong, ping pong. That's you. I'm speaking to you, because this is my own experience with healing. And this is what I learned that helped me stop the ping pong in healing work and actually start to experience what healing really is. So this comes with 5 habits basically that make long-term healing real. So habit number 1, this one is number 1 because it is what changed my world for me, and I have seen it change the world for my students and my clients. And that is this idea of curiosity. So in trauma, the brain's mode in trauma decides that it can only have a binary view of the world. It needs to do that in order to reduce the number of variables it has to calculate in order to make a decision. So when you're in a threatening situation, you can't be considering 10,000 variables. It needs to be very black and white so it can make a decision, take an action on that. Makes sense. Simplifies the process, allows focus to remain on the threat until we can get out of it, and it conserves energy. Now, curiosity is it feels like it's going to be the opposite of that experience, but in reality, that first step in real healing that I've experienced was to become curious about this black and white thinking I had from my traumatic experiences, from how my body was responding to things. And it was kind of this weird, soothing experience for me, because it's like, wow, well, I noticed this thing about it. I know this sensation in my body. Notice where this is in my body. I know I noticed what I do with it and what I don't do with it and what I want to do with it. It started to open up this world to me about my own lived experience that I had gone through. And unknown to me at the time, this was actually starting to open me up to one of the fundamental truths that we work on in trusting in the happiness after codependency system. When we work on self-trust, one of the fundamental principles we work on is trusting the legitimacy of one's reactions. And it was curiosity that led me to that realization. It's like, ooh, if I'm curious about this, what is this? What is it telling me? What am I aware of here? How is this working for me? And what is it telling me to do? What is it warning me of? What is it trying to get my attention to look at? That kind of experience helped me start getting more in touch with what was real for me and allowed me to start seeing what I needed in that space. And that's where I learned, hey, I need some regulation. I need more safety. I need a shelter to process these things, and I need a secure community. I need a different kind of, at that point in time, I needed a different kind of therapy to assist me in these things. And that was coming out as questions of like, I'm noticing that this isn't working as well as I thought. What else? And I'd ask other people, hey, it's doing this. What would you do in that? Things like that. So I still employing this idea of curiosity. Pam says, I find non-black and white approaches frightening. Well, yeah, there's a lot of consideration to consider. There's a lot of things going on in the world, and that can bring in a lot of variables. When we slow down and go, hey, I'm willing to be curious about this frightening feeling about non-black and white spaces or approaches, you can start to get in contact with your lived experience, what happened for you there, and care for it. We would do that ideally in tandem with a trauma therapist that's helping us co-regulate and access our sensations, giving us a secure container by which to do that exploration in. Further, curiosity adds to our ability to see new possibility and new opportunity, because as we move out of the freeze-fawn loop that creates codependency, we start to re-engage the fight and flight responses. We start to disengage the limbic system and move into our prefrontal cortex, re-engage higher level thinking. Curiosity becomes an essential tool into understanding new opportunities, being able to identify them, being able to interact with them, and care for ourselves as we deal with the stress of the unknown and uncertainty. Curiosity takes that sense of threat down a bit, because now it doesn't need to be a certain thing for us. Instead, we're curious about what it'll do, what we'll learn from it, and how to play with it, what it teaches us. So curiosity can be soothing in that way, because now we're not attached to specific outcomes, so our level of safety isn't at risk as much. We're like, it'll do what it'll do, and I'm going to learn about it. And that also helps us stay attuned to ourselves, so we can be like, what do I need in this to feel safe? Where's my capacity? Where's my edge? Where's my limit in this? And allows us to continue to grow and heal in that. So that's number one, curiosity. Number two, and this is essential, and this is something we work on in the happiness strategy or happiness after codependency system, as well as I recommend having a therapist in which students are working with in this too. And as building capacity through regulation and learning how to soothe the nervous system, soothe tension in the body. We do that with co-regulation tools, self-regulation tools, and learning how to sense into one's capacity, boundary, or edge, the limit we have for a thing. So like yesterday, and the Healing Codependency Essentials trainings, we were talking about some pretty intense stuff around fawning, around codependency, and what to do when we want to people please or when we want to avoid conflict. Some of these things can be really intense. They can be activating. So I had pauses throughout the class where I just slow down. Check in with how we're feeling. What's in our awareness? Where do we feel that in our bodies? We do a little heart shelter to help soothe, or a little touch regulation, or a little stretch and a reorientation to the environment. Learning how to soothe one's tension, learning how to comfort one's anxiety is key to any kind of healing work, because that helps us manage and care for our capacity, because it's our capacity that will determine how much of something we do and when we do it. When we approach our self-care from this angle of nurturing capacity and soothing tension, building a more resilient experience with intense sensations and emotions in the body, we'll find ourselves experiencing more peace, more regulation, more grounding long term, and we'll have more resiliency when we encounter things that are intense for us, and we can come back, care for ourselves, and then be cared for through co-regulation in safe therapeutic communities. So number 2 is learning how to build that capacity through nervous system regulation and soothing. It's an essential practice to this entire thing. I offer a short course on the concept called Be Calm. Gives you some basic tools in starting that process. But I also recommend coupling that with a trauma therapist, in which you're learning how to do that at a deeper level, at a way that works for your nervous system and your pacing and your journey. And number 3, community. Community is essential to healing, because especially in codependency is a relational trauma. It happened between you and other people. So learning how to feel safe again with other people, and to begin experiencing different dynamics than what we may have been through in the past, community is essential. And there's 2 types of community I typically recommend. Type 1 is a support community that's oriented around giving tools, guidance, and shelter around a specific kind of maybe trauma or global concept of pain that we might be dealing with. Like the Thriving Beyond Codependency community on Facebook is one that I provide that way. I also provide what's called live mentoring hours for my students, where we can share, be seen, be valued, be cared for in those spaces there. So that's community type number 1, is a support community that works for you. I recommend having one online and one in real life, so you get both online and in real life interaction and support. Second community is for play. It's going out and just having some adventure, having some discovery, building friendships, building inspiration back into life through play, through adventure. And it helps employ that curiosity, but it also helps remind our body that we want to live beyond this thing. We don't want to just survive. We want to move towards the thriving, creative expansion of our world. And so that community can be friends, ideally safe, healthy friends. That can be a community centered around a particular type of value that matters to you, a principle or a guidance or a movement that matters to you. It can be centered around mutual interests, but anything that gets you to move into a little play and creativity space, it's going to help you heal there. Number 4 is commitment. And commitment is this idea to self. I'm committed. One commitment I recommend is being committed to knowing, loving, and being you at whatever it takes to get there. When I say whatever it takes to get there, I'm really meaning we're going to do the work that comes up as we go down this path to really know ourselves, to really love and be who we are. And that is a lifetime commitment. It's a journey. There's not a destination you'll get to where you're like, oh, I know myself. Here I am. Now I'm going to be it. And that's not how it really works, because healing isn't about fixing. Healing is about discovery and evolution into some other experience of who we are and what reality is. So it's a shift of understanding, of relationship to events, to sensations, to identities that we carry from trauma, and who we are beyond it. Who do I want to be now? So that kind of thing. And that commitment to knowing, loving, and being who we are helps us root into ourselves, where we naturally want to be. Now, that comes with ebbs and flows, because initially, sometimes being that oriented is really intense, because now we're going to be dealing with consequences from other people. But the idea of commitment there says, okay, I'm going to learn how to do this gradually over time. Because with any kind of real healing work, it takes time. Slow is fast. It's not about, I'll get this done in 12 weeks. It's more like, well, I'm going to make this commitment and see what it does for the rest of my life. That's one thing I did, is I just committed for the rest of my life. I'm just going to practice coming to know me, love me, and be me. I don't know what that's going to look like. I suspect sometimes I'm not going to like it. I'm not going to want to do it. Sometimes it's going to be painful. Sometimes it's going to be joyful. Sometimes it's going to be exciting. Sometimes it's going to be boring. It's this idea of getting into contact with that. Now, the first place in commitment I like to focus people on is a commitment to their own well-being. So if I'm committed to my knowing, being, and loving who I am, we can take that and move that to well-being and say, let's look at what we need in boundaries, what we need in supportive resources, what we need in how we view ourselves, how we practice care for ourselves, kindness, how we soothe emotional pain, how we regulate and soothe intensities, sensations in the body, things of that nature. Those empower us to become more oriented to knowing, loving, and being ourselves. And that first state of well-being is deliberate. That first focus, because, well, the opposite of being codependent is being oriented towards one's well-being and long-term happiness. And that brings us to the next commitment that comes down the road, is that's being committed to one's development of contentment, happiness, or joy in whatever form and shape it shows up for you. So when we're exploring well-being, we're exploring joy or contentment or happiness in one's life, that's going to immediately bring us back to that first primary focus of knowing, loving, and being who you are. Because well-being and joy and happiness are products. They're expressions of that work. So that's where that is at. Let's see here. You're welcome, Pam. Very welcome. And then Brittany says, will you post that healing isn't about fixing, it's about changing thing you said in the community? Yes. Yeah, I've got a little graphic I can put on that for sure. All right. Now it's number 5, not number 10, but number 5. And you're just probably not going to like this one. In my experience, I didn't like it either. It kind of pissed me off, to be blunt. Number 5 is persistence. Let me know what you think about it. That means I'm going to show up for myself right now, even though I don't like myself. Even though having to do this boundary scares me. It scares me to say no. It scares me to leave this relationship now that I know that that's what I need to do. It scares me to ask for what I want. Persistence combined with commitment will lead us to take necessary steps that produce the well-being we're seeking. But that is done in connection with our capacity and this commitment to well-being, right? Do I have capacity right now? I might, and I don't want to do it, but I need to do it for my well-being. Yeah, that's when we do it. Sometimes we get a little tricked because the idea of doing the thing is scarier than actually doing the thing, so we employ curiosity. Am I willing to take a risk and see what this reveals to me? So persistence puts into action commitment. It puts in action to community. Like I can lean on my community. I can say, hey, I'm about to do this thing. Will you guys have my back? Will you hold my hand? Will you be here? That kind of thing. It puts into action the building of capacity and the soothing of nervous system tension and anxiety. Because, okay, I'm going to reserve capacity just for this thing. I'm going to do it. And then afterwards, I'm going to take a break from it. I'm going to take a break from my things, soothe myself, connect with my community, become regulated there. Puts into action curiosity. Who do I want to be in this situation? Oh, I want to be this. What actions does that mean? Oh, it means this. Okay, are we ready to take that leap? So persistence in showing up for yourself and doing the practices that work to soothe, care, and empower you. Okay, they soothe you, they care for you, and they empower you. Because there's sometimes we get tools and we're like, I don't want to do that because it feels better afterwards and that doesn't feel safe. Ooh, now we have a need. What can I do here, because I'm being persistent, to soothe my need for safety in feeling different? Persistence in experimenting. Experimenting with your situations, with the tools you've learned, the skills and practices you're gaining, the knowledge you have, the knowledge you're learning. Experimentation of like, okay, well, this rejection really sucked, and I feel like I'm worthless. Okay, we have that perspective driven by shame and an abandonment wound. I wonder what this looks like if I look at it through the lens of being intrinsically whole and worthy. What does it look like now? What does it feel like now? What do I become aware of about myself and them? Where do I feel those things in my body? What do I need in that? Experimentation. Being gentle with ourselves. Because there's one thing we do really well, and that is be hard on ourselves. And that's because we are emulating the abuse we have received. See, being hard on oneself is an emulation of what we have received from others that have been hard on us, on themselves, or on others. So this is a chance to go, wow, what would care look like here? What would be caring and soothing for me? Sometimes we're going to bypass the answer that shows up to that. Sometimes you're going to feel like we don't know the answer. That shows up for you. Give it a few minutes. Sometimes I just give it a day or two. I'm like, I don't know what it would be yet. And I allow curiosity. I'm like, well, if I could have my way, I would be treated this way. I would be experiencing this thing. Sometimes it's as simple as like, well, I would go to sleep and give myself a break. I go out and touch a tree or pet a cat. I call a friend. This is where we're getting a chance to attune to ourselves and really hear ourselves a little more, aka knowing ourselves right there. Persistence in leaning on community, leaning on safe people and safe peoples or persons where we can be seen and valued, where we feel that on a consistent basis, consistency being 8 out of 10 times, and where we are encouraged to take it at our own pace, to turn towards care, towards warmth, towards our pain, towards kindness for what we've been through. Where less and less we are being told what to do, and more we are being guided in figuring out what we want to do. Persistence. It's the one thing that got me out of my codependency. It's the one thing that helped me find lasting closure with trauma. It's the one thing that led me into healthier and healthier friendships, romantic relationships, business relationships. It's the one thing that's made my business thrive, made me thrive. It's an essential ingredient, and it's okay if you hate it. Because I'll tell you, there's days where I hate it too. I'm like, stop. It's normal. It's okay. And persistence does involve play, taking breaks, going out and being messy, going out and just being a kid again. So persistence isn't about the seriousness of anything. It's about putting that commitment into action. So I'm going to check the comments here. Without persistence, we won't succeed. Correct. Yeah, there's no way to succeed without persistence, because we are creating new associations emotionally, neurologically, biochemically with life. And for those to become more and more natural and easy, we have to practice them. It's a lot like water. Water will find the easiest path down the mountain, and that's where the grooves are. So if we want water to go through a different path in our mountain, we got to create a groove, and that groove is created by persistent practice in this. I'm going to make a note, or I'm going to ask you to make a note. Note that I have not mentioned perfectionism. I have not mentioned arrival or destination in this. Because those things, one, they're not actually real. There's not an actual destination we get to. We arrive at milestones like, look what I've experienced, or what I've done, or the change that's present in my world. But there's a path, there's a road to travel, things to discover. Perfectionism being part of our fawn response, but also part of a narrative from unhealthy people, is a utter fallacy. There is no necessity for perfection. If there was, we would have examples of it. There isn't any intrinsic perfection because there isn't any necessity for it. There's just diversity, there's just discovery, and then there's adaptation to the discovery so that we can get down the road, whatever we're hoping for, right? Whatever we are leaning in to experience more of. So when I'm doing like goal work, setting up targets for my life, things that I would want, I look at it from the angle of, well, what would I like to experience more of at this time? What would I like to have more prominence of, or more abundance with, if you want to get into that concept? But what would I like to have more frequently in my world? That's easier to work with than trying to be perfect, trying to arrive at some specific magical destination. It also keeps us out of meaning making, out of story making, and it nurtures us because we aren't here to be productive. That's a narcissistic concept. When our value is attached to productivity, we have been turned into a commodity, and we aren't commodities. We're human beings. So when we move forward in healing, we're not healing so we can get somewhere. We're healing because we are learning how to care for ourselves, how to love ourselves, how to know ourselves, how to be ourselves. That's what real healing is, at least in my work and my own personal experience. So, my friends, these 5 habits: curiosity, building capacity through nervous system regulation and care, having community, commitment, and persistence, they're the essential ingredients to any healing you're seeking for in any area of your life. That's the 5 habits right there. All right. Thank you for being here. A little announcement real quick. Got a new workshop coming up. It's a free workshop for everyone. Includes the recording. It's called How to Heal Your Trust, or How to Trust Yourself Again, depending on which page you go to. This workshop's dedicated to helping you understand why you distrust yourself, help you understand the 3 principles of concrete self-trust, what the path is for developing that trust, and then getting you your first step, your first practice in that. We start April 27th. It's one day thing, so it'll be about 2 hours, 3 hours at max. It'll be taught at 11 a.m. Mountain Time and 6 p.m. Mountain Time, April 27th, which is a Wednesday. So come join us. The link is above on Facebook, below on YouTube, and it'll be on my front page at freetheself.com. Come learn what it takes, the necessities, the path to journey, and learning how to trust yourself again, because that's an essential step in healing. If we're really going to make healing concrete, because we'll have other habits here, we're going to add a 6th habit: learning to trust your legitimacy, your natural completeness, and making, trusting, realigning your choice and action with integrity. That's self-trust. So Good work, guys. Thank you for being here. Take a moment, check in with your body. Check in with how you're doing. Where's your capacity now? What do you need right now? And follow that. So go gently with yourselves. I will see you guys in our next video. Have a beautiful day. And see you later. Bye-bye.